Hi, welcome to our lesson. We are looking at systems technology and we are going to focus on the startup process of a computer. Now this process is actually a process that involves a lot of things. But now let's try and explore the overview of this startup process. The startup process involves powering on the computer, where the power supply will supply power and then the BIOS will be started. All right, and then once the BIOS is started, the BIOS is actually the instructions that checks the system configuration settings, and then once it has checked the system's configuration settings, it would then send these instructions in terms of checking whether the time is correct, the RAM is available, mouse and keyboard, storage devices, etc. Now these instructions are actually stored on the RAM. And then once all of this has happened, then your booting process begins, where the BIOS calls specific files and loads them onto the RAM in order for your program to start loading the full operating system. Now, once your operating system has been loaded, now we call that the booting process. Then that's when your system will start up. It shows the Windows logo, and then you can get your login screen. Now, while everything is happening, now we have some devices that are playing a major role into this process. Now, we're going to explore these devices. Now, the role of a motherboard. Now, the motherboard does what? It houses the components. This motherboard is this example here that you see there on the picture. Then the role of the CPU is for processing. So while everything is happening, the CPU is processing. Then the role of RAM is to hold data and instructions during the process of execution. Now this is obviously happening, and the RAM is obviously holding the data temporarily while everything is happening. Then the role of RAM is to store the startup instructions. So all of these are the components that are actually involved in the startup process of a computer. Then obviously when you get your operating systems, they come with some system utilities. Now what are these system utilities? System utilities is software that assists the user to manage, control, and maintain computer resources. Remember, you would have your computer working and functioning properly, and you'd want to keep it that way. So system utilities will allow you to maintain your computer resources. Now, examples of this would be a disk scanner. Now, what does a disk scanner does? It detects and repairs damaged files, then read errors to improve the performance of your computer. The second one, defragmentation. All right. Defragmentation is the installing and uninstalling or deleting of files that can cause the hard disk to be fragmented. Now, whenever you're busy installing files, uninstalling, deleting files, then later on your files become defragmented. Now, what does this mean? They say defragmentation moves these files next to each other on the disk to speed up the time it takes to access a file. So it means that these files will be scattered and it takes longer for you to have access to the files. So once you defragment your computer, it means that it will be easier for you to have access to the files. Right, and then lastly we have compression. Now compression is to zip a file by reducing the overall size of the file. Why would you do this? You would do this in order to save time when copying or sharing files. So these are some of the system utilities that you can get in order to help maintain and control your computer resources. And that is it for our lesson. Thank you. Goodbye.